Story 1. Every fall, my town has a carnival at the local high school. You know the type. Makeshift concession stands, small roller coasters, and the classic swing ride. Well, it was my freshman year. My friends and I were never very nice people. We all played football, and we were real jerks to everyone. Out of all the people we mistreated, I would say we were meanest to a kid named Aaron. Aaron was a band geek. He was around 80 pounds overweight, wore character t-shirts, and was covered in acne. We would completely terrorize this kid. My friend Dan broke into Aaron's locker and threw all his books and papers all over the hallways. My friend Mark threw water balloons at him one day after class, and as ashamed as I am to say this, I gave Aaron a monster wedgie in front of everyone in gym class. Well, Dan, Mark, and I put on our Letterman jackets and went to the opening night of the carnival. We had been doing a bit of pre-gaming beforehand, so we arrived at the end of the night. Families were leaving, and many of the workers started cleaning up. Nonetheless, we were intent on riding the swing ride. I'm sure you know the ride. It's the one where swings lift up around 20 feet off the ground and swing relatively slowly in a circular motion. The swings were located in a remote section of the carnival. Due to the sheer size of the ride, it could only fit way in the back towards the woods behind the school. As we approached the swing ride, we saw none other than Aaron dressed in a lame uniform operating the ride. He was getting ready to clean up and head home. "Hey dweeb, not so fast. We're riding this thing," Mark said, while giving Aaron a slap on his butt. "Yeah, fat boy, start it up," I said with a laugh. Without a response, Aaron opened the gate and let us get on the swings. He strapped each of us in and started the ride. The ride started out totally normal. It was pretty slow, and carnival music was playing from the speakers near the ride. After around 5 minutes, I was getting a bit dizzy. "Hey, is this thing almost over?" I yelled to Aaron below. Aaron stared up and smiled. It was a grin of pure satisfaction. He looked down at the controls and pushed the lever all the way to the top. The swings began moving faster and rose even higher. "Hey, let us off, man," Mark yelled to Aaron in between whimpers. "Please, man, stop," Dan cried. Aaron stared up at us and laughed. He slowly began walking away. "No, stop," I yelled as Aaron slowly faded into the night. The swings began creaking. They were clearly under too much stress. Suddenly, I heard a loud bang. Dan screamed as his swing flew straight off its hinges and into the woods. As if in response, I heard another loud thud. Mark's swing broke clear off the hinges. He too flew off into the woods. It was only me now. I was praying to God or whoever is out there to please make the swing stop. Just as I heard my swing start to creak, the ride slowed down. The failsafe must have been activated, and the swings lowered to the ground. Mark never made it through that night, and Dan is now paralyzed from the waist down. The police never found Aaron. He simply disappeared. He never really had anyone, so I can't say that I blame him. Aaron, if you're out there, I'm sorry. I will never make fun of anyone, ever again. Story 2. I'm a single father. It was my first time ever taking my 4-year-old son, Benjamin, to an amusement park. I had received a nice bonus that year, so I decided to take him to Disney World. Benjamin was extremely excited. I had never been to Disney World as a kid, so I'm not going to lie, I was probably more pumped than him. Since our flight was delayed, we arrived at Magic Kingdom pretty late. I paid a bit of extra money, so we were able to get in during the so-called extra magic hours. After riding the Pirates ride and a few other fan favorites, we took a break to get something to eat. I did a ton of research on Disney before our trip, so I knew some well-kept secrets of Magic Kingdom. On Main Street, USA, there is a shop with an old phone on the wall. If you pick it up, you can hear a conversation between a mother and daughter. After we entered the shop, Benjamin began looking at some of the toys in the corner, and I walked over towards the phone. I picked it up, and to my surprise, it was on. I could hear a mother and daughter talking about life on a farm. They weren't saying anything too interesting, but I thought it was so cool. As I said, I never went to Disney as a kid, so I was really into the entire experience. After listening for around a minute, I heard a deeper voice. It was no longer a woman, but a seemingly worried man. "Hello?" I said into the phone. I was actually even more excited now. What other secret was this? I thought to myself. "Watch," the voice replied. Watch what?" I asked. "Watch the child," he replied before the mother and daughter's conversation returned. I suddenly realized I was so intent on the phone conversation that I wasn't watching Benjamin. I turned around and he wasn't there. Panicking now, I sprinted out of the store and peered down Main Street. Benjamin was holding a cotton candy and being led towards the exit with an old woman. I sprinted after them and grabbed Benjamin. The woman tried running, but she was restrained by security. This old woman was mentally ill. She had been planning for months to kidnap a boy and to raise him as her own. I never found out who or what was the voice on that phone. A Disney employee told me that a man's voice was never programmed to speak on that phone. I must simply have a guardian angel. Story 3. I like to explore abandoned places. It's always been a hobby of mine. There is something oddly calming and nostalgic about it. Just the idea that thousands of people walked through a certain place and now it's completely deserted comforts me. There used to be a huge amusement park in my area. I don't want to say the exact name because I want to stay anonymous, but it was pretty famous. It stretched out over 100 acres and saw tens of thousands of people per season. My fellow explorer, Jeremy, and I loaded up my truck and drove around an hour to the amusement park. These areas are still technically private property, so we always explore under the cover of the night. We parked the car, loaded our camera equipment into backpacks, and entered the park. There was an old Ferris wheel in the distance that would make for a cool picture. We made our way towards the Ferris wheel. There were large branches scattered throughout the field. The old trash cans were all knocked over. Old makeshift concession stands stood every few feet. An old merry-go-round was located next to the Ferris wheel. The horses stared back at us. Their painted-on eyes were nearly completely faded. We set up our camera equipment and began taking photos of the Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel was over 100 feet high, and its red paint was beginning to chip off. After a few minutes, we heard a loud thud. It was coming from the merry-go-round. We slowly picked up our camera equipment and started walking towards the exit. If there was still a security guard in the area, we didn't want to have any trouble. As we walked past the merry-go-round and towards the front gate, we heard a few whispering voices. Suddenly, a group of large men appeared from behind some of the horses. They were dressed as if they were homeless. "Get 'em! That's a nice camera!" one man yelled as the entire group started sprinting towards us. Jeremy and I dashed towards the entrance and the safety of the truck. The men were fast, and we were both being weighed down by our heavy backpacks. As the grunts of the men behind us started growing louder, we both dropped our bags. We made it to the car, locked the doors, and floored it out of there. We lost thousands of dollars of camera equipment that night, but you can never put a price on your own safety. One of the cameras was still connected to my iCloud account. I went home and logged onto my MacBook to see if there was some sort of way to track my camera. As I opened my MacBook, my stomach sank. There were pictures of dead bodies on various amusement park rides saved into my iPhoto. A dead man was propped up onto one of the horses on the carousel. A dead woman sat on the Ferris wheel, and yet another dead man sat in a bumper car. I immediately called the police and gave them these pictures. They canvassed the area, and there was no sign of the homeless men. I haven't explored abandoned areas since. You never know who is lurking in the dark.